Okay, good morning, GM friends. Welcome to the Iron Power Grid Spaces, as we always do at 4 p.m. UTC on a Thursday. We're going to pull up all the speakers on stage in just a second, and we're going to have yet another beautiful conversation. Beautiful conversation, as Mr. Trump would say, because we love to have beautiful conversations on Power Grid Spaces. Today, we're talking about fractionalization versus full ownership. What's the advantage of one or the other? Because we need to discuss all of the important aspects, Web3, crypto, blockchain, fractionalization, RWAs, DeFi, and everything in between. We're no strangers to these types of discussions. So bear with us for a couple of more minutes while I pull up all the speakers on stage to conduct this amazing conversation. While we're at it, by the way, I need to tell you guys that energy resilience means different things in different spaces and different places as well. Um, by that, I mean specifically that for islands, for example, it's protection against supply disruption. For storm prone regions, it's quick recovery from outages. And for developing areas, it's reliable baseline service. So, our network, which is the global IONP network, it addresses all of these three. And the good thing about Iron Power is that we've got a unified layer of uh, tokenomics and everything in between, which enables this like network that we got going on, which is over 1,500 energy providers across Europe and the world under one decentralized network. So you can just plug and play your energy production and you can trace all of the energy that is distributed, that's being generated on our net within our network, because that's the advantage of blockchain, and that's the advantage of decentralization and Web3 overall. That's what we do here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iron Power Grid Spaces. Thank you for coming. Let's go over some of our distinguished guests. Let's start with actually OpenLoot. Hello, sir. How's it
Good
going
morning,
today?
guys. This is Ryan from OpenLoot. OpenLoot is a Web3 gaming platform and ecosystem. We have seven fantastic games. Um, we aim to be the Steam of Web3 gaming, and we have some really exciting announcements. So definitely follow us if you haven't already.
Oh my God, I stayed muted. Definitely follow OpenLoot. OpenLoot is one project for the books. Very cool stuff, and I love having Ryan. Recently, we've got more Ryan on our spaces, which I'm really happy about. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Shiv of Solana is with us today. Hello, Shiv. How are you feeling?
Hello, guys. How's it going? Pleasure to be back on another Ion Power Grid space, and even more of a pleasure given that it's my favorite host, Daddy Phil. Apologies again because somehow at these nighttime spaces, there's always a nice background music of Delhi traffic with me. But that being said, my name is Shiv. I am head of BD at EFAS or Earth from Another Sun. We are a base building FPS game with roguelite elements where you can command your own totalitarian state in humanity's darkest hour. That being said, Phil, you already know how much I love this topic, so let's get into it.
Let us get into it. But before, let me guess. Is this Steven from Timons? Or is this Rahul?
Hey Phil, this is Steven from Diamond, so super happy to be here. By the way, it's part two of these spaces. Last week we had a first part of fractionalization vs or versus full ownership, super nice spaces here. We had some great topics and happy to be joining again with Diamond. So Diamonds basically we are a decentralized Web3 NFT marketplace representing full ownership of um, commodities and gems and basically you own your full NFT backed by a real physical asset, stored in Liechtenstein, fully compliant under the Liechtenstein law. So let's get it on.
Let's get it on. Indeed, I just realized I haven't named it part two, so it's like part one, but it is definitely part two. Last time it was such an incredible conversation. I couldn't even ask like two questions. It was just carrying on really, really interesting takes. So I'm hoping to continue the conversation because fractionalization is such a topic that woof, woof, indeed. I mean, in a sense, we are fractionalizing energy, right? I mean, if energy is fractionalized within single kilowatts, then it would make sense to call Ion Power Grid a fractionalized energy ownership marketplace. But I don't want to put any words in the mouth of our founders. Instead, we're going to introduce Daffy One. Daffy, hello there. Long time no see. How's it going?
Hi there. I'll speak for that if you want. It's actually the main account, and yeah, we have trouble with Twitter like everyone else here. So my name is Alex. I'm the head of partnership at Daffy One, and Daffy One stands not for cartoon personal. It's decentralized autonomous frictionless finance. It's a counter-account blockchain platform designed for merchants, creators, unbanked, and general non-crypto users, normies. So we support 20 blockchains. We support a lot of features like ticketing, payroll systems, and a lot of stuff. So it's mainly built around the world, right? I've been building this stuff for almost 4 years now, coming out of the stealth mode into actively promotional mode. Thanks for the invite. Let's get into that.
Thank you for joining. Awesome. I am tuning in from NFC Lisbon, which was a little bit underwhelming, not gonna lie. Um, I would think it would be more engaging, but meh. Lisbon is enjoying a great weather. It is roughly 25 degrees Celsius, which is great. So I don't mind that. I don't mind chilling here with all of you guys sitting in my villa that I'm not paying a single cent for. That's the best. That's the best part about it. But let's dive into today's conversation. Timons, Mr. Steven, I would like to start with you, sir. Would you be kind enough to continue last week's conversation? And let me check where we actually like where does fractionalization shine versus full ownership? You said Timons is a full ownership platform. We're working with other projects as well. I personally host spaces for different projects. One of them is also a diamond type of marketplace. It's tokenized diamonds, but it is also not fractional. So, what makes sense when we're talking about fractionalization, and what doesn't make sense? If you could speak to that.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, yes, we are doing full ownership. Um, one NFT is one asset, it's one of one. And basically, we wanted to to give the opportunity, first of all, to get to everyone, to make it possible for everyone, everywhere, worldwide, to get hold of whatever asset that were previously inaccessible. So, first of all, I think RWA is giving access, giving the option of access to anyone. But at the same time, I think, of course, fractionalization helps smaller wallets somehow to invest even $1, $2 into higher valued assets. Now, this being said, I think on our platform, you can already find assets starting at $180 and you can be full owner of your asset. Now, I think there are a few topics. Maybe I'll take one or two here. So one is about liquidity. Of course, if you have a fraction of, let's say, a gold bar, of course, you can bring more liquidity into the game. That's one. That's one side of the thing. Um, but we opted for sovereignty. So basically, we give full ownership, 24-hour trading, global accessibility, and then the idea is also to get into DeFi models with borrowing, lending, and this is made possible through full ownership. Now, there's another, maybe a more the emotional value. The fact of being full owner of an asset, first of all, emotionally, it's yours. There's no discussion. It's not cut into pieces. You are not owner with someone else. No, you are full owner and it's yours, and you decide exactly what you do with your asset. You keep it, you redeem it, you transfer it, you gift it, and so on. So those are the two first subjects that I wanted to touch base on. We spoke about it last week, but I think, yeah, let's see where this discussion brings us to.
Yes, and I would like to even delve deeper because we've talked about these topics already. So let's dive deeper into both of these topics. One side of this is fractionalization is great because it allows people to own or partly own or partially own things that they wouldn't be able to own otherwise. Sure, that makes great sense, but also is it really a proof of concept? Because how much ownership is possible, or what specific industries we're talking about? For example, if you want to own a house partially, then you'll have to share the rights to that house as well. And by sharing the rights, I mean you can't live there 365 days out of 1 year because you're a fractionalized owner. We've seen this through Nouns DAO, I believe, or one of the DAOs purchased a house in Texas, and they allowed every single member to live there for a day or something, which was really not working. When we're talking about real estate, it is really tricky, especially when we get into the legal side of things. There's the other side, which is the metaverse, but also the other side of the argument, which is if you're owning something for a speculative value, for a future valuation, such as a diamond or even, say, real estate, you don't really care about using it or utilizing the land or the diamond or any other different asset that is valuable, let's say, that goes high in value. Um, you just need to resell it later. So, are we talking about speculative value when we talk about fractionalization? Or is there some other examples that have actually worked, or even in theory can work? I also need to formally apologize because I didn't introduce Soulbound. Marcelo, I have no idea how stupid I can be sometimes. So I leave this word to you, sir. Is it actually all about speculative value, or do we have some better examples for fractionalized ownership that actually works?
Big Daddy Phil. Yeah, I felt left out, brother, but it's okay. It's okay. I know you're at NFC, you're juggling all these things. I'm like, it's okay.
I don't.
Yeah, I'll do my quick intro. My name is Marcello, head of spaces here at Soulbound. We are doing Streamify, all kinds of stuff in Web3. We've got our TG coming up very soon and our IDO sale right now. Check out our pin post. Yeah, that's a very good question. Is it speculative when it comes to, fractionalization versus full ownership? I guess it really depends on how you look at it. I think from even from like a quote unquote utility perspective, yes and no, right? I think that we touched on real estate last time, and I think that when it comes to use cases, for instance, I think fractionalization is such an incredible use case when it comes compared to full ownership, right? Depending on where you are in the world. For context, I'm in Canada. Buying a home here is extremely unrealistic. It's over $1 million. A lot of folks do not have that yet. Maybe after this bull run, I will. We'll see. But in the meantime, if I wanted to invest or diversify my assets, my investments, right? I want to get into real estate. I may not be able to afford a full home or different properties that may be way out of my budget. But when it comes to fractionalization, at least I have that possibility to be involved and participate in the market. Now, whether I guess speculation ties into that for sure, whether I'm speculating whether the market goes up or down, for sure. I guess in that case, now that I think of it, it does tie into it. But at the same time, even just removing speculation outside of the realm of trying to make my 100x or try to make a massive gain, just the idea that I'm able to put my money in a store of value, even outside of speculation, just knowing that if I believe in the real estate market but I'm unable to participate in it, but now that the barrier of entry is a lot lower due to fractionalization, I'm able to participate in that. And for sure, if I'm speculating the market's going to go up or down, there's that value as well. But it might also just be a store of value where I may believe that the market will not be impacted over the long run, whether it decreases or not. At least I know that rather than keeping my money in a bank and with interest and all the beautiful things, I know that that will be impacted. At least I'm comfortable knowing that I could put it in an asset that I might believe in, that whether the value stays around the same over the next decade or it does increase, at least there's the security. Well, not there's never any real security, but at least there's the idea that I would be able to do that, and that option is there. And I think that that is super cool. And I think that the possibility that you can do that now, due to this whole discussion here between fractionalization and full ownership, I think is very interesting. So I don't know if that answers the question so much around speculation, but that's kind of what I'm how I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, that's a great framework to think about it. Um, with Yeah, and as Steven said, having the full ownership of something gives you a different feeling. And when we're talking about feelings, it is important to note that um, it's not a laughable matter, so to speak. It changes, like fractionalized ownership changes things um, for a human, like in the human experience. And that's the key word there, the human experience, because this is something, especially fractionalized ownership online, this is something that has never been possible before, like an actual shared ownership of online things and maybe real world things as well. But online is what fascinates me because I mean, you have so many possible developments through that. That's my main, I guess, point of interest because uh, you have DAO voting, you have shared sense of community. There's the new things, developmental aspects that come to play. How do we develop a business? How do we give power back to the people? What does being a holder mean? And aspects like that. Shiv has raised his intelligent hand. So I would like to give the mic to Dr. Shiv. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for that. I've never had my hand complimented. But I think you raise a very good question in trying to understand where fractionalized assets make sense and where they don't. Because frankly, honestly, Web3 has more than enough of very potent and innovative and powerful technologies, which are massively being underutilized by being put in the wrong place. So I'd say, like Marcello said, number one for fractionalization always goes to those high value assets, which are extremely low access. So, number one on that list is real estate. But of course, we have blue chip artwork, collectibles, maybe NFTs again, who knows? But the idea is where individuals are not able to afford that full asset, but still want that exposure in their portfolio. I would say after that, now anytime something has a clear redemption logic, fractionalization makes sense. And let me break that down. If you know that for a fact you can resell or redeem your fraction easily, it gives those tokens real world weight. So it's basically RWAs on chain, but with a stable exit. So then that starts to bring in a lot of other asset classes, which start to make sense here. And number two on the list for me after high value, low access assets like real estate would be things that are yield generating. the West and all its governments, especially the states, have always doubled down on even government issued assets that are able to create yield over a certain span of 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. And those, just whether it be bonds or whether it be rental income or royalties from an IP, anything which is either recurring or guaranteed, which generates a yield or bears a certain utility with certainty, it's very important for that to be fractionalized at some point in the future, because if we don't, what we're basically doing is cutting out certain parts of the market. There may be millions of people in India or, like Marcello said, Canada, that want to buy houses today, but are not able to because the portion of capital they have allocated to that sector is far under the minimum ticket price of a home. Now, if you're able to bring that down for, be it a house, be it for a Picasso artwork, or be it for a commercial property yielding rental income, you're going to end up having a lot more people that are able to join that asset class. And that has, first of all, a lot of net value creation in the long term. That has a ton of domino effects in the sense of people trickling in over time, which I think needs to be held very close. So I'd say, in one sentence, in terms of real world assets, you need to have redemption logic no matter what. You need to know where you're getting your money back. And if that's guaranteed, maybe the only outlier to that, I would say, is a very smooth functioning DAO. And I say that because fractionalization for a slightly speculative asset would only make sense if there's aligned communities where something is co-owned, or that asset is something which everyone took the decision on making, so the speculation is almost mass guaranteed. Now, like you said, once speculation trickles in, the sense starts to go more and more, because just turning something expensive into slices doesn't make it valuable. I could launch a token today on Pump Fun and buy one token for $10,000. Would that impute a value of $1 trillion in the token? Absolutely not. So I think there are gimmicks that exist in the industry which have played off that infinite fractionalization, that micro uniting. And I think while it might work on a hype level to get initial users in, it's really counterintuitive and counterproductive on the long run, because users are eventually going to either want a yield or some sort of logic for redemption, or they're going to end up being smart enough to realize what's going on. So I think that verifiable backing or provenance is very important, because users today can trust real estate and other RWAs and IP, but just fractionalized tokens of something which does not today have a clear redemption logic should just be bet on by VCs. Don't open it up to retail if you can't handle the expectations and the responsibilities that come with opening something up to retail. So, in a nutshell, I just say that fractionalization is a very, very powerful and innovative tool, but not a value driver by itself. It's only going to add value when it solves a real access or liquidity problem without diluting that trust or utility. And if it's used as this solo all bearing weapon, you're only going to have more and more cases of what we already have in Web3, where it's people selling copper in the name of gold.
What a beautiful take. Shiv, let me zone in on that a little bit, because you said leave it up to VCs if it doesn't make sense yet. That kind of like struck a chord with me, because do you think um so like so like for educated people, like for more business or tech savvy individuals, like working in VC or VCs themselves, it would make more sense once if we're talking about speculative value, and then maybe we can enable something more. Like, I'm trying to understand
Hmm.
what project or product or service would make sense if we could break it down
Hmm.
and enable some sort of utility on top of that. Like, what, maybe like movie sharing like that's the
The
only one, like DVD sharing or something, but it
the
doesn't really,
the
you know.
essence of what I'd say, which is very important to keep in mind, is an investor, as they climb up the hierarchy of going from a retail investor to an institutional investor, have more have a greater freedom and liberty to be to be risking assets that are more speculative. So VCs, their very nature is knowing that they lose more bets than they win. It's just the bet that they win which gives that supernormal profit, which makes everything else back. When an average retail investor invests outside of FNO addicts or Web3 degens like ourselves, I would like to believe that that comes with that responsibility. So if you see an asset like a movie being from a director which has made, for example, I mean, Indian movies are a great example because Bollywood is really big. So I'd say if I know that director X has had 10 movies that each have grossed between 5 to 10 million, it would make sense to fractionalize ownership rights to the next movie at a certain base layer where there's some either discounted cash flow model or something applied to however you factor in producer logic. But that makes sense. If I tomorrow want to say I'm launching Shiv's movies and let's fractionalize this because I bought a piece for $10 and there's 10,000 pieces, so all of you buy it, so it's worth 100K or 1 million, that doesn't make much sense. So I think the logic of the director or the producer or the backtracking of it just brings in that idea for redemption and adds more safety pads for an average retail investor. And as long as we hold that at the core of what can be fractionalized and what can't, I think the whole industry will be much better off.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we are like, I was talking with my friends the other day, and I'm from a country which doesn't really teach money management, and they're better off because it's a post-Soviet country, so it doesn't really concern itself with teaching people how to be independent and how to uh, live independently, so to speak. So I was talking with them, and it was like, oh yeah, you've got to think about how to manage your income because you like the whole idea of work is how much money can you set aside once you're paid, because that money should start generating you money. And it was like, oh wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But none of them do it. Like only, I don't know, like 2% of people I know actually do that. Um, and you said like once an investor, even like a person on an individual basis, moves towards that, they start to think differently about assets. They start to think differently about ownership, partial ownership, full ownership, speculative value, and all of the other aspects. So yeah, uh, I guess the key is to get there, if that makes sense. Presearch has joined us as well with their interesting, decentralized, uncensored uh, search, which probably searches independent money making and how to become financially independent. Presearch, hello there. How's it going?
Doing good. How am I sounding today? Can you hear me?
Pretty
Good.
good. All right. Anything you want to chime into?
uh yeah, fractionalization doesn't make value. It is very interesting as a technology to exist all of a sudden, as it didn't in the past. Um Fan of ownership, fan of yield. I do think that ownership spread out can be beneficial for systems that friction on them. A lot of people deep in space kind of utilizing that as a real world solve for things that are hard to do, potentially more centralized, a little adjacent to fractionalization, but um, you know, uh, distributed ownership of electricity, or in our case, nodes for searching things. Um, yeah, I've kind of been listening. Apologies for the late uh, entrance, but yeah, just because something can be owned by a bunch of people doesn't mean it has value. But it is very novel and interesting technology that didn't exist in the past.
It is, yeah. And how do we enable fractionalization to make sense for people that aren't necessarily investors? Is my question. I mean, that's the age-old question. It's not like I'm expecting you guys to have like a cut and clear answer. But as Shiv said, I totally agree with him. Fractionalization doesn't isn't an end in of itself. It's like similar to buying NFTs for the sake of buying NFTs, which we've been doing for quite a while, and it didn't work. 99% of the NFTs are dead. Frank D Gods left D Gods, as I heard. So nothing makes sense, and I'm trying to make
I
sense of it.
think that it
Um,
could be,
yeah, go ahead.
and this, you don't need fractionalization for this, but like you were saying, you were talking to friends um, about generating money with money. When someone isn't um, uh, native, for lack of a better word, because I can't think of any other word, if someone doesn't know about a system like, let's just say, investing in equities or crypto, it would behoove someone to just uh, do an activity that is in that system. So let's say if someone didn't know anything about buying stocks, um, someone a long time ago that I admired the mentorship of said, just, buy something, watch it go up or down, and then that they get a little bit more knowledge about how that system works. In fractionalization, um, I mean, it is kind of cool if you own a part of something, and that's your way into knowing about investing into crypto, maybe like an NFT. Someone isn't uh, in that world before, could be kind of a cool way. Um, but like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be that vehicle to do that. But let's say if someone freaking can own a piece of a very famous painting, that could be a fun one to knowledge about decentralization and crypto as a whole.
Right. Yeah. Um, for mass adoption, that's a really good point you bring in. I want to throw it over to Crypto Walker. Um, Walker, Mr. Walker, uh, what do you
Yeah.
think that means for specifically for adoption? Are there benefits or downsides for fractionalized ownership in terms of adoption versus full ownership?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of attempts to, let's say, tokenize real estate. I guess that was the first mover back in the ISO era where I joined the space. And we have seen a lot of examples, and many of these failed because of the regulation being unable to sustain a proper business model, etc., etc. Like, I've been working in art-based tokenization sector with stablecoins for years in the eurozone, and I see that there's still a lot of blocks. Like, we want to enable something novel, and most of the people they trying to build it just for the sake of innovation without having like a lengthy roadmap in mind. Like, you've been asked, how do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, can you answer that for your product? Probably not. I mean, most of these guys they have a short runway, like maybe 1 year, maybe less, depending on how long the bull market will be. So that's the problem. Let's say that one as an example, the company doesn't rely on grants, investments, and stuff like that. We have our own runway and we can keep our own pace. That's the beauty of it. So, when it comes to building the company that provides a gateway to fractionalized ownership, you have to take technology in mind and the fact that it takes years to properly build infrastructure, right? Like we started with the payments because after all these decades of blockchain existence, people cannot basically access financial services, and not just from third world countries. Pardon me. I mean, you had like a traveler, digital nomad like me, and you see a lot of friction and roadblocks whenever you go. So I want to help people get paid. We want to help them enjoy the beauty of payment services, ticketing services, being able to buy a ticket from whatever country they are and go enjoy Taylor Swift concert. Or they arrive, let's say, in some Latin America country where you need to go to ATM, cash out. Only then do you take a cab. Well, there's might be a problem that mile, so we solve that. You will not need a cash. Buying stuff in the real world, paying for real stuff with the stable coins without the need for cash or third party intermediaries. That's the goal. I mean, that gap had probably, I wouldn't say been bridged. There was a lot of attempts to bridge that gap too many times, and still it's a limited adoption. When it comes to fractionalized ownership, there's a lot of great stuff like pictures, art, right? Fine art. When it comes to something higher barrier, it might be unique cars, right? Vintage cars and luxury naval vehicles like yachts. So it's not just about the bull run. There's millions involved, and you might not need to ride that car, but owning something, a piece of something that might appreciate in value, it's a great investment, right? So I would say people don't really know what they're trying to build, and most of these guys they're just showing tokens, and that's a problem. I mean, they want to enrich themselves or their community or their a group of I don't know, their inner circle. That's it. So I would say a lot of projects they are like outright scams. I've been building a lot of connections, and I was disappointed way too many times. So don't take it like a bad take on the industry. I do believe in Web3, and I do believe we're going to see a lot of innovation. Just most of us, we just talk the talk. That's it. At Deca One, we are not very fast with development. It took almost 3.5 years to develop the wallet alone. Then comes the ticketing barrel systems. And yeah, it's not really advertised right now. It's going to be once the pay system is live, and it's hopefully go live in a month or so. So with the DeFi 1P, hopefully you're gonna have a lower barrier to invest in RWAs. We're gonna support a lot of them. Right now, building some connection in the space with actual companies that do have a product and a service, and not just a token. It's not gonna be dive into this too long, so we have some time for other questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. And hmm, interesting take. Ryan, would you like to chime in on what's being talked about right now? I'm really curious about agency on individuals with fractionalized ownership versus full ownership, especially in regards to mass adoption. I think it makes sense, but it's really hard to understand when you don't have concrete examples. You know what
Could
I
you
mean?
lower that question by about 20 IQ points for me, please? Okay,
No.
I don't have an answer then.
No, I'm well, the thing is I'm known for rambling around, making it sound like a very smart question, but it's actually not. So no pressure at all. You're free to talk about literally anything
Um,
you want.
I think that we are entering a new era where AI will accelerate the hedonistic collapse of society. For those with high agency, they will be able to achieve and deliver what they want. For those with low agency, they will just be constantly sucked into a loophole of dopamine and hedonism. So fast food, junk, trash, shows, robots, things like that. So I think all this stuff is a very interesting thought experiment, but in the end, um, we have a bigger problem.
But if everybody has AI agents, everybody has agency.
Do they though, or do AI agents have agency and not the people it's themselves? Because the stupider you get, the less agency you have. We've witnessed this with Soviet Union, with North Korea. I mean, brainwashing works on people that are stupid and really don't want to like question things.
So
I can give a take. It's
And I
very not
think
related to this at all, but it's related to
look,
the
look,
atrophy of the human
A-
mind.
AI agents or whatever technology you want to bring into the discussion is just an equalizing and neutralizing agent. For example, someone with an IQ curve of a 70 has the same access to an iPhone of someone with an IQ curve of 140, but the use case of each of these technology pieces are fundamentally different. And we're going to see the same thing happen when AI comes out. Some people will use it as a therapist, boyfriend, or just an entertainment mechanism, while other people look for a way to forward their agenda. It's already happening on a grand scale with the iPhone. People use it for short form reels and to watch movies, while other people use it to conduct their business. So, yes, you're right, but fundamentally, it doesn't matter. We can just watch and see.
Yeah, let's watch and see. Let's watch and see what happens. Let me throw it over to Shiv. Shiv, I know you got to leave earlier, so please grace us with your smart thoughts.
Sure. So I think all in all, what we're seeing with AI agents is, of course, a part of like human instincts to make the overall pipelines and automations for how we solve things smarter and more efficient. But I do think eventually there's going to be those AI agents that do a lot of the manual work for people, and there'll be those that do the thinking. I think the latter is very dangerous, and that is more of a post-apocalyptic future for us because if we're having children being born into a world where their own individual thinking is not promoted and they have tools which through which you can almost outsource thoughts or higher order thinking skills and things of that nature, you are going to be down a pretty sad slope for mankind. That being said, I am bullish on the types of AI agents that are automating a lot of the things which maybe do not need that much time allocation per se, whereas the thinking can still be done behind the curtains. All that being said, I still think we are extremely early days in where the iteration of it is, especially from a Web3 perspective. I think what we saw maybe end of last year was just the initial onslaught of 2021 NFT season like AI agent mania. And where the technology actually lands up, at least within our Web3 industry, will only be actually seen from a utility perspective 1, 2, 3 years down the line because the real builders do have those longer feedback loops in place. They aren't the ones that are taking a project running for 3 months and trying to launch. So I would still say we haven't seen everything the industry could give us yet. That being said, given that this is my final take, I will say that fractionalization does have massive benefits if used correctly. Like I said earlier, the only point to hold to core is, does the asset that you're looking at fractionalizing have a logic for redemption, or is there some yield generating or utility bearing logic which can be applied, if not in the immediate short run, in the mid run at least? Besides that, you bring in scales and scales of speculation, which instead of fractionalizing and taking to retail, you'd be better off finding the right institutional investor with the palate for that sort of a risk appetite. Thank you for having me on.
Oh man, it feels like we are listening to a very smart podcast. Thanks for joining, Shiv. As always, it's a pleasure to hear you
I'm
talk.
still here for
Always,
another 6, 7
always.
minutes. I'll only leave when I have to.
Yeah, thank you,
He's
thank you,
not
sir.
gonna
Thanks so much.
leave.
Uh,
Wall Street man.
Simon, Simon. Oh my God, I just combined Stephen and Timons, and Simon came out. Uh, Timons, Timons from Stephen. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I just wanted to jump in, and of course, I think Shiv said something right. I think utility is important, yield generation is important if we want this concept, and more than a concept, this fractionalization stuff to succeed. Just a few years back, there was this NFT craze. Hopefully, it comes back soon. But there were already a lot of experiments with fractions of a board ape, fractions of whatever collection was quite hyped at a time. But I think it didn't succeed for few reasons. The first reason is the utility. Once you are fractionalizing an asset, the question is the utility of that asset. For example, at the board apes, when you were keeping a full ownership of a board ape, you had access to some events, access to some whatever perks they were giving out. And I'm not sure with fractionalization that the utility of those perks and added values that you have by being a holder of that asset are continuing. So that's the first thing that needs to be looked at. And why it didn't succeed, I think there are two reasons. First of all, the NFTs were backed by nothing. It was just a JPEG. And here in real world asset tokenization, what we are doing, so the NFTs are backed by a real physical asset with a value, with a less volatile value than crypto, for example. It's a gold bar, it's a silver bar, it's a high value diamond or low value commercial diamond that will keep this value throughout the years and in the best cases will gain in value. And I think this is also a reason when the market collapsed in the NFT, everybody was selling those their assets, and the secondary market collapsed as well into those fractionalized assets. So that's one take. The second take is also I think there's a big importance in ownership. And basically, you know what, we are very proud to say that Diamonds, we try to promote and to be, uh, keep, how to say, like to really promote, let's say, the freedom of ownership. And I think that's important is to give the keys back to everyone, to give the power of owning stuff to anyone. And the problem when you fractionalize assets is that the ownership is divided between different people. And if you would like to redeem the asset, or if you like, or you would like to purchase the full ownership of the asset, you will have to buy out the other parties. And if you are in a system, in a DAO, if you are in on a protocol that has no clear rules on how you can purchase the other fractions, let's say, or if there's no threshold that at 75% of ownership you could apply to get that remaining 25% for a normal price and not at a crazy price that the other owner is asking you. So I think we need to find ways and we need to find adaptations where one, utility is kept, number two, ownership through fractionalization and unfractionalization is kept in a sorry, maybe cut out. So intact for every user. And I think that's my take here. And so, yeah, I also have to run, unfortunately, but it was a great being again.
No worries, man. I completely understand you got stuff going on in the background. So thanks for joining, Stephen. Uh, Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to talk with you, sir, always. I'm going to have to move over to our final statements, guys. We got to wrap up as well. Marcelo, is there anything you'd like to add, sir? Any idea that comes to mind? How can we prove that fractionalized ownership is actually worth it, or is actually worth the interest of the regular people that don't really care about you know uh, like crypto and web3 and even speculative value?
Yeah, definitely. I think let me just double check. Yeah, no, sorry, I just got a message. It distracted me. Yeah, no, I think it really just comes down to, a lot of the different points that were mentioned already. I think around accessibility, lowering the barrier of entry. I think these are all utilities and use cases that I think are super important. Ownership, sovereignty. I think also simplicity, right? I think investing. I keep mentioning how things are here in Canada, but it's like the most relatable thing for me personally. It's just that, I think for a lot of folks, it isn't practical and it's very complicated when it comes to investing in certain assets like real estate, right? But the idea that we're able to lower the barrier of entry for folks to enter these markets in a way that wasn't really possible before, without the blockchain, I think is absolutely incredible. And I just think that, I think with the times, people will definitely open up to this conversation more. I think, regulations and, the whole stuff on that side. I think, as the conversation continues to evolve and we continue to find ways to kind of regulate this market more and more, I think that a lot of folks are going to be more open to it. I think right now, because of the stage that we're at, there's a lot of skepticism, and I get that. All these, there's a bunch of Ponzi scams, rug pulls, all this stuff that goes on within the crypto realm. So I think as we, as things become more kosher and more legit, and I think we have more regulatory bodies, overseeing these operations, I think that the conversation evolves, and then I think it's really the selling points around the utility of how it lowers the barrier of entry, how it simplifies ownership, how it makes it accessible for more people to get into these markets. I think all of these points already stand on their own 2 feet. I just think naturally people have a lot of skepticism when it comes to anything crypto, and I think that once that wave slowly evolves, I think that things will slowly start to change as well. But yeah, that's kind of my take. I do also have to go to host another thing in a few minutes, so I'll start wrapping that up. But yeah, those are some points on my end, and I think this discussion was really great. I'm happy you hosted a part two, Daddy Phil. I think this is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for joining, man. It's always a pleasure to talk with you guys. Pre-search, I saw you emojing. Is there anything you'd like to add or leave us with, sir?
I was emerging at regulation, which is good and bad. Uh, yeah. One, thanks for having the space. Two, check out presearch.com. Three, on fractionalization. I think even just not in the crypto world. I mean, in TradFi, you're seeing private equity try to be open up to retail, and that's not going to be either very liquid or going to have a new vehicle to have um, some kind of fractionalization with that. So it is always a bit um, raucous to have layers of ownership, do full ownership, but um, it's advantageous and disadvantageous depending on the problem, the person, and the asset and the structure of the um, asset setup, the asset infrastructure. Uh, it depends. A lot of what I say is it depends, but it truly does. Um, but especially in the crypto space, to have um, verified ownership, whether that is full or spread out between people, it's an interesting concept. Um, People can have fun and people can profit, which is, I think, what a lot of people need.
Hopefully they can. Yeah, it definitely opens up a lot of like a slew of opportunities, I would say. The thing is to make sure to use those opportunities in a secure and well formed manner, well organized manner, so that we have better options than just the same or even worse alternatives to what is already existing. And this goes to everything, to starting with uh, financial instruments to all sorts of products and services that we are tackling. Open loot, Mr. Ryan. I'd like to leave you with leave you the final word. Over to you, sir.
We have a big announcement coming, so be prepared, everybody. It's coming sooner than you think.
Let's
Thank you.
go. Sooner than you think and later than like right now. So make sure to follow OpenLoot and everybody that's been on stage today. It's been a wonderful conversation. We're going to continue these topics forward in the future as well. We do this every single Thursday at 4 p.m. UTC. We talk about crypto, Web3, RWAs, fractionalization, tokenization, and everything in between. Make sure to tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. UTC. If you can't, you can listen to the recording right after the space. With that being said, enjoy your weekend, everyone. Hope to see you next time. Cheers.